Right.
So welcome, folks. I am Catherine Everett, one of the co-presenters for your session today, and I'd like to introduce my partner in crime and co-teacher for many years and collaborator, Ingrid. Do you want to introduce yourself just really briefly?
I'm Ingrid Tempton, and I'm one of our co-presenters and have worked with Catherine in outdoor settings for quite some time. And we're very excited to have you all here.
All right, so let me see if I can get this, if this is going to work for me. Okay, let's try this. Okay, so we're here today on behalf of Learning for a Sustainable Future, which is an amazing organization, as you probably know, that has tons of great professional development opportunities, resources. They do lots of advocacy work on the sort of the upper echelons in governments and ministries of education across Canada. So we're really excited to be here today, sharing some of those resources and working together and collaborating. So I would say I am by no means an expert here. And I think, Ingrid, you'd probably agree with me that we're not the experts. So a big part of today's session is going to be working together and collaborating, because none of us have taught in this kind of pandemic situation before. And so really, especially towards the second half, there's going to be lots of collaborative work. But before we get started, if you wouldn't mind taking just a moment to review our land acknowledgement. Ingrid, did you want to do this one?
I'd be honored. We recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which the Learning for a Sustainable Future organization works. LSF and York University acknowledge their presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Toronto has been taken care of by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis. It is now home to many Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. This treaty is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. Toronto is built on sacred land that is part of an agreement between Indigenous peoples and then extended to allied nations to peacefully and respectfully care for it. By personally making the land acknowledgement, we are taking part in an act of reconciliation, honoring the land and Indigenous heritage, which date back over 10,000 years.
Okay. And if you don't mind just taking a moment to just, I know we're calling in from all across Canada, and this particular land acknowledgement reflects the site of LSF. Ingrid and I are in Brampton, Ontario, which is also part of the current treaty with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. It's a different treaty, but just take a moment to acknowledge that we're all coming from different places, and our relationships with land are going to be quite different because of that, but we're all in this process of reconciliation together. So just to kind of like spark a little bit, I wanted to start off with something a little bit different. So this is a little list that was created by a systems thinking expert named Donella Meadows. And I just thought it was a really nice way to sort of think about the fact that our system of education as we know it, because of this pandemic, has quite rapidly shifted from what we feel comfortable with, what we've kind of known, and that the system that we're entering into is a very unknown for all of us. So if you don't mind, take a quick look at this list, and in the chat, if you could just think of maybe 2 or 3 parts of this list that are resonating with you as you start to think about what's coming as we sort of move into our September start of the year with our students. and our colleagues, what are the things that kind of are sticking out for you in your mind here? And we'll just take a minute to add a couple of those things into the chat. Okay. And you're still seeing it, correct, Ingrid?
Yes, yeah, and it's lovely to see some responses coming in through the chat.
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot of expand thought horizons, staying humble, stay a learner for the good of the whole, pay attention to what is important. Lots of stay a learner, and that is why we are all here. Celebrate complexity.
The open air, I think that's the one that was standing out for me. Really shifting our thinking to the open air and airing out some concerns maybe that we have, and not just the the natural part of it, but putting things out to the public in a different way.
Yeah, we're seeing expanding the boundary of caring. Hold fast to the goal of goodness.
All right. You can continue adding things in there. I'm just going to move on to the next slide. I'm conscious of time. So here's a quick overview of what we're thinking today is going to look like. And don't worry, there will be lots of opportunity. We're trying to build in at least half of the session really on collaborative problem solving together. So there's not going to be a lot of us yakking and top down stuff. We're going to try and make sure that this is as interactive as we can, and to make sure that we leave lots of time to address concerns and worries and anxieties and questions that you have. Okay, so that's you can see sort of, yeah.
We've had some queries about resources, and I know I'm not the tech expert and I don't have the access, but yes, the slides and resources will be shared later on.
Absolutely. And there's quite a bit, probably I would say 25% of the slideshow is just links and documents and books to check out and things to think about. So yes, tons of resources are coming your direction. Ingrid and I are both teachers, classroom teachers, so don't worry, we got you covered. So yeah, so we're gonna try and get through the bulk of this sort of just the discussion part, and I'm gonna introduce Ingrid. I didn't tell you that I was gonna do this, but I'm gonna introduce Ingrid, so I'm gonna flip ahead to Ingrid. So Ingrid is actually a grade 6-7 teacher in a communications class in Peel District School Board in Mississauga. And before that, she was an amazing ISSP, which is our special education term teacher and grade 4 teacher at K-5 school in Peel, and we did a ton of environmental inquiry, both together and just within our own practices. Ingrid had the most amazing experience when she was a high school student, because she got to take a year off of like traditional school.
A semester.
Sorry, a semester. And she was part of a program called the Bronte Creek Project, which was, we think it's still in Halton District School Board.
Unfortunately, it was canceled in the fall of last year, fall of 2019.
But it was a 4-credit high school program cited at the Bronte Creek Conservation Area. Wasn't that where it was, Ingrid?
2 camps on the escarpment.
Right. And they did a ton of environmental leadership work. They ran programs for elementary school students. They did camps. They did all kinds of wonderful work that she brags about constantly. But she's also a total coffee lover, garden fanatic, and social justice advocate, and works tirelessly with her students, she buys them shoes when they don't have shoes, folks. Like, this is the kind of person Ingrid is. So Ingrid, if you want, you can introduce me if you want.
I'm going to embarrass you now. Catherine is currently a grade 7 teacher at Morningstar Middle School in the Arts and Technology program. and talk about somebody who goes above and beyond. She has traveled to Kansas City for about 15 hours on a bus and stayed for, I think, 3 or 4 days with her students. She is currently pursuing her Master's of Education in Sustainability, Creativity, and Innovation. And absolutely a tireless advocate for the environment, for her students, and absolutely imbues that passion and shares that passion with her students. And I think you will see her out of her lovely cool summer dresses and in her active wear outdoors today. But that, I think, is enough about us. And I think we should move on. We do have a few handy dandy things to share about this and why it's so important. Admin support, looking for protocols for behavior issues, keeping student engagement, that transition in between, you know, outdoors, inside. So you walk through and I'm assuming that things like you have to walk from the classroom through the hallway to the door with your mask on. So once you're outside, where do students keep their masks, for example? I'm sure that's a question. Physical distance, group work, curriculum links while teaching math is coming up. So perhaps we've got some good tips and tricks to share. So.
Okay, so Ingrid, you're gonna do the second side of that, right? And then into the Jamboard?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. So so why outdoors? Well, I don't think that, I mean, I think we're all kind of probably here because we have the same vision that this isn't just leisure time. This isn't like you know, an extra. This is the heart and the soul of what we should be doing with students, and especially now to address the well-being, their well-being and our well-being. It's really interesting. One of my master's colleagues, she's done some research about how getting outside with your students actually has a huge impact, and she did quite a lot of research on the impact that it had, the positive impact it had on teacher well-being. So the research is out there, and it, you know, we all know about vitamin N, and you know, the idea that our physical health is improved, our spiritual and mental well-being is improved. And right now, because of COVID, you know, we're in a situation where the outdoor classroom, the outdoor spaces around us are the safest, the lowest transmission context for us. So, you know, there's not high touch surfaces that we have to wipe down, you know, or not many of them unless we're going into built environments. But, you know, we've got the ventilation, we've got the access to more space to physically distance. So, you know, it's really going to be a protective feature. So hopefully we'll be able to give you some practical things that you'll be able to take to actually make use of outdoor spaces today. And it's nice because imagination and creativity don't require any health and safety. One of my co-presenters came up with that little saying, and I thought that was a really nice way of saying it. So there's a difference between, and we're all in a spectrum between, you know, taking learning, what we would do traditionally in a classroom and just bringing that outside, all the way to really deep land-based, connected to nature outdoor learning. So there's a spectrum here. So, you know, this little chart just kind of shows that there's sort of two ends. And when you're working and advocating with your teams and your schools, you know, it's just good to be aware, because for some people, and it's okay to find an entry point that works, right? So for some people, it might be just bringing that math lesson that they do, you know, that what people do inside, and bringing it to the outside spaces, you know, on clipboards, or you know, with a lap desk, or if you have picnic tables nearby, and, you know, it might be as simple as that. But you also might be able to start exploring avenues to open more doors and to take a deeper view here, really looking at not worrying. And the beauty of this situation to me is that we don't have to worry so much about curriculum. Really, we don't. We're working for the next couple months on reconnecting kids, on really working on well-being, and that's one of the reasons why they've opened schools up again, is because they're concerned about the well-being of our students. So really focusing on that, and having a little bit of license to not pressure ourselves so much on the curriculum side of things. So finding those extraordinary moments in the ordinary things that we do, and taking things outside makes that possible. I know I was a bit of a downer on the worksheets here. I mean, we can still do worksheets outside. That's, if that's where people are comfortable, then start there. Just moving outdoors is going to open things up for some of our colleagues. And maybe you're not ready to throw them into the campfire like Ingrid and I are, but right? All right, so let's talk a little bit about practicalities. Ingrid, did you want to talk a little bit about this one?
Absolutely. I think a really key one is walking trip permission forms, how your school, your board handles that. And that can definitely be something done, really easily in the first week of school with all the other multitude of forms. I think early communication with the families is super key. Letting them know day one that this is something you will be pursuing, keeping it in your Google Classroom or whatever tool you use to communicate with your families. Gear can be stored. There are places for it. Kids can keep extra pairs of socks in backpacks, boot trays for wet shoes. It absolutely is possible. Now we are in the chat, I'm seeing things like, where do you go outside? Where do you sit? And you'll see in the coming slides a few ideas for seating, absolutely. Meeting spots. You're going to see a Google Earth snapshot of our school with some zones identified for different activities. Building routines, having a meeting spot, having a signal, whether it's gestures or a whistle or a clap, just building those routines from day one, whatever's going to work for you and your age group, and the different kinds of equipment. Catherine is going to be living with Lowe's buckets, because kids can store materials and it's an instant seat.
Yeah, we're going to spend our first day actually using those paint buckets from hardware stores. We're going to use I'm not sure if we're going to use duct tape or vinyl or what we're going to do, but we're going to use and we're going to create the cushions for the top. We're going to use the lid in the top, and then inside they can carry their sketchbook. I'm going to get each of my students a 3-ring binder that has pockets, as many pockets as I can get, and some alligator clips so that we can, have a piece of paper out and use that instead of a clipboard. Just a little bit easier for storage. Yeah, they can put their zippy or pencil case of their own personal learning materials in there.
If you can move the slide one along, I think
oh, there it is.
Everyone will be able to see those pictures.
Yeah.
And I'm also aware of, yes, so those are the drums. And that is actually my class meeting. We had a bit of a meeting spot, and that was something we all agreed. So that was after a biodiversity sort of exploration and observation task. And let's keep going.
Yeah, you can see that on our schoolyard there, that outdoor inquiry stations, like that is a super rough draft of just some of the spaces in our particular schoolyard. We're really lucky because we actually do have a very large space, but it's very suburban, and it's in a neighborhood in the GTA that is maybe not always perceived to be safe for walking by lots of people, not by me, and certainly not by lots of people, Ingrid and other people in our community, but there's a lot of sort of social stigmas around outdoor learning that we have to work through in our particular neighborhood. So this is just like, that was just a initial brainstorm of places where we could cite 13, 14 different classes to give them some social distance on our property. And that's coming to our school team, our reopening committee to look at, and you know, they can be changed on a bi-weekly or weekly or monthly basis, you know, as you start to get, you know, input. But it's a really good idea to take stock of what you have, what you have access to. I've got another slide that's a bigger perspective of Google Maps, where I've mapped out in the community some other places, because some of our teachers don't live in that community, they don't know the community, and so, you know, it's a good idea to kind of break the ice a little bit, and start to open up some conversations with colleagues around these kinds of things. You know, and you know, just going back to gear for a second, and I don't want to linger too long, like maybe this is the year where some of budget money goes towards getting some rain ponchos, or helping kids if kids don't come with proper boots. Maybe we need to start looking at supporting kids a little bit with, you know, with our community supports and with our school supports to make those things happen. Like with the little ones, it you know, if you teach K to 5, these are kind of like par for the course. I find with my intermediate colleagues, sometimes they are like, well, what do you mean the kids don't have them? They should get them. And there's not a lot of experience in sort of helping kids with those necessities sometimes in middle school contexts, or you know, 5 to 8 contexts. We kind of expect kids to be able to regulate themselves, but they need help sometimes with that. And you know, this year in particular might be a year we just have to buckle down and make sure we do that.
And
okay,
thank you, Teresa, for your suggestion you put in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, please do. And if things are coming up and you have ideas, the chat function, that's what it's there for. So feel free to, you know, if something comes along that you feel like we need to you've got an idea for something, you don't want to lose it, just throw it in the chat for sure. Yeah. So just we're going to do this really quick. We're going to talk just a little bit about reconnecting kids and students to the land and to each other, and compassion over content, and trying to help our colleagues and help ourselves just be a little bit more compassionate with ourselves, and not so much pressure on, oh my gosh, I didn't cover all of the math strands this term. You know what? This is the year where we can free ourselves a little bit, I think. Maybe principals wouldn't like to hear me say that, but my principal, she's great. My principal was an outdoor educator, so we're really lucky that way too. So for those of you who have never heard this, Ingrid, is this you? I think this is you, right?
Sustainability is well-being for all forever.
And that just, you know, I really like this definition. I wanted to, you know, we wanted to bring this to you because the well-being component of our return to school being such a big topic of conversation, you know, just extending that into, yes, we need to look at our students and ourselves, but also too, we can start to look at the planet, and because they're connected, those things are interconnected.
Yeah. And we've included some beautiful quotes from Catherine O'Brien and Jean Gibbs, and the fact that outdoor learning is not new. And I am unfortunately whizzing through because I'm very aware we've only got 20 minutes left.
Yeah, okay. And again, outdoor learning is not new. Lots of experience, lots of models in the past. So just coming back to that beginning slide when we start to think about systems thinking a little bit. So well-being is really that sustainability component in the middle is our well-being center. And so when we start to really think about, this is an LSF, this comes from Connecting the Dots, if any of you are familiar with that. The link is there, which you'll have a copy of. It's a really great document, and this is sort of the transformative learning approach that Connecting the Dots advocates for. So we just wanted to bring that in, the inquiry, the learning locally, being real world. We're going to get out in the real world this next few months and try to really look at the real world issues of our community. It's a great opportunity and time to support some things in our communities. Okay, we're going to skip this. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, and we want to give time to collaborate. So what we're going to do together now is, I'm hoping the technology works here. We're going to use Jamboard, Google Jamboard. And on Jamboard, the first slide, if you haven't used, I'm going to actually bring it up. Just give me 1 second here, and I'll share the link. Okay, the Jamboard. Hang on. And this is free. You can work through the first few slides. Share.
And I'm going to do my best to put the link into the chat.
I just got it in there, Ingrid.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. So, awesome. I see people populating already. This is great. So let's rethink. Some of these are some of the traditional things that we would be if we're teaching math or science or curriculum, because, you know, in middle school, oftentimes we are really curriculum and subject specific focused. I'm not sure if any of you are like, you know, you have 1 or 2 particular subjects that you teach, or whether you have more of a general an integrated profile. But what you can do here in Jamboard is, and I will share my screen here, see if this works. Let's try this. You can use the tools on the left-hand side of the screen. There is a little sticky note if you haven't used it before, and it will pop up with a little sticky note there that you can add into the chat. Like, what are some things that we can do that could rethink the idea of using, you know, pattern blocks and, you know, plastic tools that we may be not able to use anymore. So let's just take a moment. And if you've added and you want to move on to the next couple, there are a few. And just when you're done, just drag it down. Yep. Fantastic. And this Jamboard will be available to you as well. So you can and keep this. So the next slide, for example, is rethinking science labs. Sorry, Ingrid, what was that?
There are some lovely suggestions coming up already.
Yeah, the next one is rethinking science labs. And this is where maybe if you wanted to think subject specific or strand specific or topic specific for, you know, things that we, you know, we could do. Absolutely. And I would say, I think we could go up to, there's morning rhythms, routines, and meetings outdoors. And then we'll stop here. We'll just do the first couple, the first 3. So if you want to just have a let's take 2 minutes. We'll move it quickly as we can, and then we'll just come back and take a quick look. But take just 2 minutes to add a couple stickies on each. Fantastic. If you really like an idea, you could, you know, put a little arrow or a heart beside it if you want to use a drawing tool. Oh.
So I'm seeing, you know, sit spots, encouraging observations. There's some wonderful ideas. And they're going back to our idea of connecting with the environment. We have a grow a garden and measure it contribution. And that is absolutely a way of sparking not only the curriculum behind plans and measurement, but that awe and wonder and the pride that you've made something grow, and that connection and sharing it. And who knows, maybe you get to, maybe it's vegetables and you prepare something together and cook and eat together too.
There's a lot of really, I mean, I know for intermediate teachers, Pinterest can sometimes seem like there's, you know, a very primary junior slant to a lot of the things get posted into Pinterest, but there are a few things that really could be adapted easily into the intermediate, junior and intermediate levels. And add a bit of complexity. Like I'm trying to, I know that I recently watched an episode of, you know, some British murder mystery, and they were trying to figure out the location of a tree, and they were able to use algebra to calculate the height of the tree and the shadow of the tree. You know, there is mathematics in particular came out of natural observations. Yeah. So it does take a little digging, but there is lots out there.
We do have a tech question, Catherine.
Yeah.
Laura is being asked to download the Jamboard app.
You know what, Laura, if you want to throw your idea into the chat, can you see the screen? Can Laura see that? Can you see the screen? You just can't access it. If you're coming through on a phone, it might be a little bit tricky. Or an iPad or tablet, especially juggling between the Zoom and another location. I'm going to just move over into see what's coming in the science. Tons of great science outdoors. I mean,
oh my goodness.
Local investigations of schoolyards in the community, linking between arts and sciences, local plants, Indigenous knowledge, studying plant life, sketching, photography, weather gauges, plant studies, biodiversity. These are all really great ideas. I'm trying to, you know what, one of the things I actually did with my, when I taught kindergarten relating to this idea of the kettle and the ice cubes, it would be really interesting. It'd be really interesting just to kind of think about that sort of water cycle and, you know, the hydrologic cycle and where does water go. When I did a water unit with my grade 7s, we actually discovered that there was creeks running all the way through our suburban neighborhood. They had been buried. And most communities in Canada are located very close to a creek. I mean, people build communities near water sources. So looking at that, looking at the built water systems was really interesting.
Screens, please.
Yeah. When you get into physics and air, which is at Ontario grade 6. Yeah, fantastic. I'm also cognizant we've only got 10 minutes left.
Okay, I think we're going to be okay, Ingrid. We've got, let's move on though. I love these ideas in the morning rhythms. We're coming back to the same spot, place acknowledgements. Really interesting to co-develop that and to do some digging into what would make a really meaningful acknowledgement, land acknowledgement. We used the one from City of Toronto and York University as a start, but I think co-creating is also really powerful, especially if you have elders in your community that are willing to come and work on that with you. Yeah. Really love. Yeah, why not?
And the yoga is also such a fundamental part of wellness.
Absolutely.
And I do get the sense that we're here for a holistic vision rather.
Like look at you did a tree. When Ingrid and I actually taught together, we taught together for 2 years in a grade 2-3, and we came back. We had students pick a tree on our schoolyard, and they were saplings. They weren't, super shady or anything. But they would go back to that tree. We read under the tree, we did journal writing under the tree, we did sketching, we did photography, and we kept coming back to those same spots over and over. And the students really loved it. They loved having their special spot. They loved the fact that we were allowing them to kind of have a bit of free reign within our schoolyard. And, you know, because even during, you know, recess breaks and stuff, they often feel over supervised. So it was a really nice way to kind of, we knew that they were going to those spots, we could see them, but
they would come and tell us about it, things that they noticed. And that was a fundamental, going back to my Brownie Creek project, our magic spot was such a fundamental part of that time. We visited it every day. So fantastic, everyone.
Yeah, some really great ideas. I would highly encourage you, if you are looking for, I'm going to just kind of show you a little bit here. Dirty Teaching is a really great, there's tons of great little, you know, additions to those. If you're going to pick up any resources this summer, these are the two that I would highly encourage you to pick up. Because they have really low organizational activities, simple, 5 minutes, some of them, and just help reframe some of your thinking around what you can do out there. What can you do in 100 meters? What could you do underneath of an umbrella on a rainy day? If you took your sit spot outside and an umbrella, could you make your own little, you know, private little rainy day sketching or journal writing spot where, you know, where you just have this little private, wonderful spot? It could be really magical. And I know that we're talking about teenagers here and they love to talk with each other, but, you know, just that willingness to try something, it was worth a try. Thank you everyone for sharing. Let's move. Ingrid, did we get in a couple of ideas in there? Okay, let's do this sit-upon. So just in terms of knowledge building, it's really similar to what we just did, but I would welcome you to unmute yourself at any point in time in this next piece. If you would feel more comfortable doing it auditorily or on video, that's totally fine. We're just going to try and make sure that we don't talk over each other, and I promise I'm going to try and you know, quiet down a little bit here, but just to build on the ideas of others. So in a knowledge building circle, really ideas aren't considered to be bad. We don't focus on analyzing and critiquing ideas. We just try to build on them and offer as many different ideas as we can, and you absolutely have the right to pass. So we're going to move to the first issue, and this was coming up, I guess, in the chat. Something to sit upon. Do we want to talk about sit-upons and places to actually make middle schoolers who don't want to sit on the ground comfortable? Okay, and we've got, maybe we can move that dealing with weather. Can we move dealing with weather? Can we move that? Oh, I'm just going to move that into the second slide. So what we'll do is we'll focus maybe our conversation, our topic here on, and I'll take managing behavior and I'll put that on the next slide after that. Okay, so let's just right now, just for let's spend two minutes chatting about like seating, especially if you don't have an outdoor classroom or if you have tarmac. Like the reality is some of us might be in urban schools where we don't have a lot of seating options. What can we do?
Can I speak to that?
Yeah.
I'm Teresa. I'm work with North Vancouver and UBC. So I'm all about the hack when outdoor learning. So I literally hack up a old camping mat, and I often can find them used because people have discarded them online. So like a Insulite pad, I put it in the chat earlier. You get one of those long sleeping pads and you could cut it up into squares. And I call it a sit pad or a butt pad, whatever you want. It helps, you can actually use them to help physically distant students as well. And I use them for students from like grade 3 all the way up to grade 12. Like High school students, they have to learn by sitting on the ground and getting wet, and then they go through that experience, and then they're more likely to use the pad. So that's something that's been an essential part of my kit.
And I'm going to put your link in this Jamboard as another place for people to access it.
Great, thanks, Ingrid.
Other thoughts? Oh, that's a good one. I hadn't thought of that. The silver
No,
foil duck
I hadn't
installations.
either.
That's a really good one. The sit-upons with newspapers in a plastic bag. Is someone into scouting and guiding here? That's exactly what my daughter made in Sparks this past year for their sit-upon. Yep. What about like asking a local arborist for some logs, like chopped up, you know, stool-sized logs to kind of give them a spot. We had a few of those in our kindergarten outdoor space, but they would be really handy. And I mean, they're heavy enough that they're not going to get, if they're heavy enough, they're not going to get tossed around. And if they're in a strategic spot, you know, I would say that that could work. Other ideas?
I guess in my very small contained class with 6 students, I was able to spend classroom budget on camping chairs in a bag. But I totally appreciate that we're spoiled little princesses with our cup holders even.
I mean, for me, I like the buckets. For me, I'm going to try that this year because it's going to give me the ability to go portable. So if we want to walk down the street to our local park and do something down there away from the crowds of the school, we can do that. If we want to go down to the community garden for a workshop with a local community group, we can take them down. It's, you know, a 500-meter walk down the road to a community center. So we could do that. Just the portability for me. And that's the beauty of things like those foam rolls and the sit-upons with the plastic bag and the newspaper. Yeah, yoga mats too. Yoga mats might work.
Yeah, now there were some other things because I think we've got 2 minutes left.
Okay, let's look at weather.
Some other topics.
This book here has some really great walking trips that if the students have even just a rain poncho or if they brought an umbrella to school, there are some excellent walking activities that require no equipment. You could do this as the walk, a guided walk with some sort of discussion points along the way, and come back after your walk and have a really good class discussion inside. And there's nothing wrong with going inside, folks. Like if the weather is miserable and it's bucketing out, go inside, you know, like find shelter. Like I think, you know, we all have our limits, and the kid, you know your students, and if they're like miserable, you know, sometimes they just need to learn and to get used to that because it's not new to them, it's new to them. But, you know, the other thing is, you know, just having a couple things like this in your back pocket, really, I know there is no such thing as bad weather.
Yeah.
There's only inappropriate clothing, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure that they're hearing from Anne-Marie and concerns around French. Rotary teachers can do, you can take learning outdoors in just simpler ways. And yet, maybe you'll inspire the classroom teacher to get them outside more often if you make the sit-upons with them.
Yeah.
And then they have them.
And how many of them would know the names of, how many of them could actually explain anything about their schoolyard en français? Like, could they name anything? Like, you know, my daughter's in French immersion, you know, and we try to do little bits of pieces, but like even just, you know, knowing how to phrase a sentence, simple things about what they see, like je vois un arbre vert, like, you know, playing I Spy could be really a beautiful game outside, and just trying to lighten it up from the written component and maybe really focusing on that connection with each other, reconnecting, making it fun, keeping it really loose. might be helpful. I love the ideas in the chat for dealing with weather, setting up tarp shelters. Like, what a great structure building. We have in our grade 7 curriculum, we have structures and form and function. So what a great STEM challenge, right? To figure out some kind of solution, portable solution, temporary solution, maybe more permanent solution for getting that going.
Shimon on our tire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then behavior. Like, are we, as middle school, junior intermediate teachers, are we concerned about students leaving our site, our view? Is that maybe if someone could just kind of give me a little bit more information about what that means. And I'm going to just turn off my screen for just a moment.
Hey, Catherine.
Hey,
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we do have another webinar starting at 1. So I'm going to have to brutally cut you off in the middle of a really important point. I'm so sorry.
That's okay, I know. And folks, when we share the slideshow to you, if you don't mind, there's a little Flipgrid feedback zone. There are so many resources there in that for you. There are some resources from R4R and a bunch of other stuff. So we will get that to you ASAP.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'd like to draw everyone's attention super quickly to Teresa's Communities Outdoor Learning Conference coming up in October. There's a link in the chat.
Okay, grab it.
Okay.
And we gotta go. I'm so sorry.
We gotta go, sorry.
We need more time next time, Sam.
I know.
Thank you.
An hour is too short.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
Okay, Catherine, can you end this meeting and start the next one?
Okay.
I sent you the calendar invite again, so it'll be at the top of your inbox.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank
Bye,
you,
folks.
everyone.
And okay, stop recording. Okay. How do I get out here? Sam, where do I get out? Oh, there it is. I got it.